So you want to land your first high-paying job in Canada quickly. Now, when it comes to newcomers coming to Canada, it can be very difficult for you to find a job in Canada, mostly because when it comes to high paying jobs, these are the jobs that are most competitive. When it comes to coming to Canada and accepting low skill jobs or semi skilled jobs, that is relatively a lot easier to do. However, when you want to get a job that is high paying, it can be very difficult to get a job like this. So today I will be telling you how exactly you can land your first high paying job in Canada quickly slash getting that job ASAP. So today I will be sharing top 10 tips on how exactly you can land a high paying job in Canada ASAP. If that is something that interests you, definitely keep on watching. If this is the first job search video that you're watching on my channel, definitely look at the others that I've posted in the past 2 weeks where I have provided exact tutorial on how you can get a job in Canada and exactly how to do a job search. And within those videos, you will also hear a lot of job search tips that I have provided in those videos as well, so that you can get your first full-time job quickly. So as it relates to my experience with finding jobs in Canada, I have worked in 8 different job positions in Canada. So because of that, I have a lot of experience as it relates to applying to jobs, searching for jobs, and all things finding jobs, doing the cover letters, doing the resume, everything that has to do with finding jobs in Canada. I have a lot of experience in it. One of the biggest ironies when it comes to Canada is that everyone talks about how Canada needs skilled workers, Canada need people, Canada need all things job related. However, when you actually come to Canada, what you'll realize is that as an immigrant coming to Canada, it is very difficult to get a job, mostly because you have experience in your home country and the employers are not accepting your experience because you are from your home country and they do not believe that you have the abilities to work in a Canadian workforce. So because of that, many people have to start with low skill jobs and then afterwards apply to jobs that you actually want to work in. Now, for many of the people who watches my videos, and I actually check my analytics to see like who exactly are watching my video, what is the age group, and I realized that the age group for the people who watches my videos is about from 25 years old to, I'd say, about 34 that has the highest number. Now there are persons, there are 18-year-olds who watches my video, 19-year-olds, and there are also 40-year-olds, 45-year-olds that also watches my videos. And the age range is all over the place. However, what I've realized is that when you look at the highest number of people who watches my channel, the age group is between about 25 to 34 years old. So one of the biggest things that I've noticed in that regard is that you guys are persons who are in your home country and you're already working in your home country. So therefore, when you come to Canada, it is going to be difficult for you compared to other persons who come as a student but they actually don't have any experience when they first come to Canada. The good thing about that is that I have the same experience and I would be in the same category as you, where I came to Canada after working in my home country for about 4 years. So because of that, I have a different take on things compared to someone who came to Canada straight after high school. So because of that, based on my knowledge, just being able to come to Canada as a student but having my previous experience, that has allowed me to get jobs in Canada that you wouldn't necessarily get if you just came to Canada after coming here directly from high school. or if you just did a college degree and then you came here with no work experience. Now, if you're someone who came to Canada and you have work experience but you came as a student, then definitely these videos are directly for you. Now, in this video, I will be showing you exactly how you can land your first high-paying job for someone who came to Canada as a newcomer and you have been applying to jobs and you just cannot get any. So my first tip as it relates to getting your first high-paying job in Canada quickly is to actually apply to jobs that you like. Apply to companies that you like. Try to find something where you both like the company and you also like the job position. If you're applying to jobs that you don't necessarily like, or you're applying to companies that you couldn't care less about the company, it does translate into your resume and your cover letter and how enthusiastic and how genuine your enthusiasm is in your application and in that interview. So sometimes you may be applying for jobs and you get an interview but you don't get a call back and you're wondering, how did I not get that call back? It's because the translation is just disconnected, where they see one thing but you portray something else. My next tip is to customize every single cover letter and resume that you do directly to the job position you're applying for and customize it specifically to the company. What I mean by this is that you should make sure, first of all, that you do your research about the organization, know exactly what they do, find something that makes you connect to that organization, because if you follow these tips as I go down the line, then it will be easier for you when I mention the other tips, how they all work together. So as it relates to this, the main thing is that you need to customize your resume and your cover letter directly to the organization and directly to the job position. This means in your cover letter, you should be mentioning the organization, you should be mentioning their values in what you're saying. Talk a little bit about how their values align with your values, and just things like that really helps you to connect with that organization, and that really helps you with getting that job over someone else who did not connect with the employer. Now, the next tip, which will go right hand in hand with what I just said, is that you should write this connection in the first line of your cover letter. This is because more than likely the employer is not going beyond the first line of your cover letter. Like, employers very much just skim through what is said, and when persons skim through an article or just skim through anything that someone writes, like a letter or an email, and you're skimming, you usually read the first line, then you skip, you read the last line in the paragraph and you skip, and then you go to the second paragraph and then you read the first line and then you read the last line. So that is how you skim through the application. So if you are front loading your connection to the company to the very beginning, it already entices the employer to continue reading. And also what you want to be doing is continue to give them interest, continue to keep them engaged in that cover letter so that they actually decide, okay, let me read this in detail. So what they do first is to skim it and find if they like whatever you said, and then afterwards they'll go in detail on it if they plan on shortlisting you. So the next tip, I believe this is tip number 4, is that you need to be applying to jobs that you qualify for. What do I mean by this? You need to apply to jobs that you qualify for. This means that you should not be applying to jobs that you wish you could work in, or applying to jobs where it just looks as something that you could possibly do based on your knowledge and your experience. Based on your knowledge, not necessarily your experience. So an example of this, just to make it more clear, I have never worked in a managerial position before. So if I was to apply for a general manager's position where it directly asks you for 3 years work experience, and I do not have 3 years of work experience, I have 0 years of work experience, I more than likely will not get that job. Even if I sit down and I customize the resume to the job, show that I have all the knowledge and everything that will be required for the job, you still need to have the work experience. And yes, there is a possibility that you could get the job. Like, things are not written down in stone, like things happen, you have connections, maybe you have some links, maybe you could get the job. But what I'm saying is, if you are applying to the job and you have no links and you are just applying to jobs randomly and you have never heard of the organization but you're applying to that job, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is to maximize on the things that you can actually maximize on. So what I mean by this is that you need to maximize on things like doing everything that you can possibly do to make your application the best application there is. So that is why it is best to apply to a job that you qualify for, because then there's a high chance you'll get that job because you already have the work experience. Now, if you are open to waiting months and maybe years, if you are willing to wait for years to get the job, then you can keep applying and you could possibly get a managerial job. But if you really want a job right now, it is best to apply to something that you qualify for, something that you actually have the experience and the knowledge that they require. My next tip is that I need you, even before, this is a mindset that I need you to get into before coming to Canada. You need to be open to accepting low-skilled jobs. You have to be open to it. These are the easiest jobs to get, so that is why if you're open to it, there's a higher chance you will land that job, and then afterwards you look for that high-skilled jobs. Many people leave Canada because of this one main thing. There are many persons who immigrate to Canada and they come to Canada after working in a nice supervisory position, or they used to work with the government or whatever they used to do previously, and they believe that they should not be working minimum wage. Therefore, if they accept a minimum wage job just to survive and then afterwards they just cannot find a job, they end up leaving Canada because they look at it as they do not want to work a low skill job long term. But the main thing is that you will eventually find a job. And one of the biggest and the greatest thing about Canada is that you are not stuck to any province. You can move from province to province. You can apply to job any and everywhere throughout Canada. And one of the biggest things as well is that because of COVID-19, many jobs are now remote, where you can get remote jobs. So you can be in one province, but your job is in a completely different province across Canada. One of the biggest reasons why newcomers will find it hard to find jobs in Canada is that there are a lot of employers who do not hire persons based on foreign experience. They want to see that the experience you've received is done within Canada. So because of that, they really focus on hiring persons who have Canadian work experience over persons who do not have the Canadian experience. So that is why when you come to Canada, it could be very difficult. The next tip as it relates to that as well is that if you look for jobs in the rural area, it is more likely for you to get the job because the rural area is not as competitive as the urban areas or just the bigger city areas. So if you decide to move to the rural area as an immigrant, not necessarily as a student, because one of the downside of being a student is that you're actually stuck in a location for a couple of years based on your program. The good thing is that if you want to get a car and drive outside of the city area, then you can drive to the rural area for your job if that's something you're okay with. The good thing about being in Canada is that the rural area is like 15 minutes away, so you can literally drive 15 minutes away and you reach the rural area, 15 minutes and 30 minutes away, but usually there isn't any transportation. And I'm talking directly about PEI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. the small provinces. When it comes to the bigger city areas, more than likely you will have transportation that is more available everywhere. So definitely that is something you can look into with looking at rural areas versus coming to Canada and trying to find a job in the very area where everyone wants to find a job. The next tip is to always include a cover letter. I am telling you that I've seen persons skip over persons' job application just because of them not having a cover letter. If you don't include a cover letter, employers can't really know about you. They don't, because resume, it will show where you worked and what you learned from that job, but it doesn't show your personality and your soft skills and things like that as much as a cover letter would do. So that is why many employers actually skip over your application if you only send a resume but did not send a cover letter. So that is something that you need to make a note of. The next tip is to ensure that your resume and cover letter is done based on the Canadian standard resumes. In your home country, your resume requirement may be different compared to the resume requirement of Canada. In my home country, one of the biggest things that I learned here in comparison to my home country is that when you're writing a resume in Canada, that resume should highlight the skills and knowledge that you've gained from an organization and not focus on the task that you did at the organization. What they're saying is that looking at the tasks that you've done doesn't show what your knowledge and experiences are. So they actually want to see you directly write what are your skills that you gain and the knowledge that you've gained from the organization, not necessarily the task that you've done in the company. So that was one of the biggest things, because like majority of your resume is like the task and the companies that you've worked in. So that was a big thing that really changed my entire cover letter and resume. And then one of the next things about resume writing is to include like numerical figures. So if you are going to say that you worked in an organization that did XYZ, include like how many people were a part of the organization. Or if you say I was nominated as one of the best cooks in my organization, what you could say is of 20 people that were being considered for nomination, you got considered and you were nominated as one of the persons to be employee of the month, for example. My next tip is kind of a tip where I didn't know that I needed to say this tip, but I've seen someone, and I've seen it multiple times, where persons go to an interview in jeans and t-shirt because the job is like a janitorial job or it is some low skill job, so they just show up in jeans and t-shirt, and of course they don't get the job. This is because it doesn't matter what the job is that you're going to do. You cannot show up in casual clothing. Even though I say that, I am saying that you can dress differently whether it's janitorial versus a professional job. However, do not show up in casual clothing for any position at all. Even if you're going to get a job in a factory, still dress semi-casual, at least semi-casual, but do not show up in casual clothing in any setting at all. Like, just don't do it at all. The next tip is bring your A game to the interview. Make sure that you do practice questions, go through the frequently asked questions, bring your A game. Come to that interview confident and ready to go. Now is not the time to be shuffling around papers trying to find things. Bring your A game. If you do all of these tips, definitely your chances of getting a job has significantly increased. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you find it helpful. Remember to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.